Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, February 27th, 2023 Maplewood City Council meeting. I want to wish Maplewood a happy birthday. As of yesterday, Maplewood was 66 years old. On February 26, 1957, residents of New Canada Township voted to organize the township remaining unincorporated land into the village of Maplewood. So we are now 66 years old. And one of our council members, she wasn't serving on the council at that time, I'll say that much. But anyway, happy birthday, Maplewood. If you want to learn more about it, you can go on to the Maplewood Area Historical Society website. They have a lot of really interesting information. I will tell you that on the website, it does indicate there was a little bit of encouragement for New Canada Township to become a city, and that was because the city of St. Paul had annexed a number of pieces of property from Maplewood, and in 1957, 3M built their first buildings down in South Maplewood, what is now South Maplewood, and St. Paul was very interested in annexing that. And so as a result, it was a very fast incorporation to because you couldn't annex when we became a city. So anyway, happy birthday, Maplewood, 66 years and going strong. So with that, tonight we've got a full house. We are going to be swearing in 6 new public safety officers, which is really very exciting and one of the favorite things I know of all of our council members. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Max Gavand, whose father is going to be sworn in tonight, if he would help us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Max, do you want to come up to the microphone, please? Would you all rise? Max, do you want to lead us?
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for your help, Max. Nice job. City Clerk Sint, would you please do the roll call for us?
Councilmember Juniman?
Here.
Councilmember Lee?
Present.
Mayor Abrams?
I am here as well.
And Councilmembers Cave and Villavicencio are not joining us tonight.
Thank you. Attendance may be a little bit short, but we're strong and mighty council members, and I want to thank Assistant City Manager Darrow for sitting in for City Manager Coleman tonight as well. Council members, is there a motion to approve our agenda?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Lee, the motion to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Council members, I want to suggest moving F5, the resolution of appreciation for MAC member Steve Langdon, up right after number 2, F2, so that we can take care of that resolution of appreciation while we have a house full of public safety officers, because we want to say thanks to Steve, who's sitting in the back there. Hi, Steve. Thanks, Steve. We want everyone present for you to receive your resolution of appreciation. Councilmember Juniman, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yes, an update on Ramsey County dispatch policy.
Okay, dispatch policy. I'm going to add our public safety annual report.
Cool.
And Councilmember Lee, you have something else you want to add?
Yes, just a quick comment about the Planning Commission and then also the Minnesota League of Cities.
Okay, Planning Commission and League. Council members, with those additions, all those in favor of the agenda for tonight signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Moving on to the approval of the minutes for the February 13th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Lee, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve the February 13th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Juniman.
Yes, I'm trying to find the page number now. Of course, I can't find it. It's about the Moose Lodge. It's page 8, packet page 8. It should be say Gary Leonard near the bottom, Gary Leonard, Administrator at the Maplewood Moose Lodge.
City Clerk Sint, did you get that change? Any other changes or additions? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the February 13th meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Next, we have the council calendar update. And Mr. Darrow, that is going to be you tonight.
Evening, Council and Mayor. Just a quick update, a reminder of the council retreat, which is an all-day event at Wakefield on May 18th. And then we've also provided you with the major community outreach events, the Easter egg hunt coming up on April 8th, Rice and Larpenter spring cleanup, no date or time yet, so we'll provide an update on that as we get closer to that event. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Juniman, we're on to council presentations, the dispatch policy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we had a meeting last week, and it was, we had a hint of this last fall, but we didn't get into it until this time. A new initiative in the county called Appropriate Response Initiatives, and it's going to involve some changes in the way we do things in public safety, but maybe more so in dispatch. And it has to do with the fact that other places like we were the first suburb, however, to have embedded social workers, so for mental health calls, and then they're going to go on to other calls, arranging calls by what do people really need? Do they need a squad car? Maybe not. Do they need somebody that just comes and helps talk through something? Who knows? They haven't got the whole list done, but this is what they're working on, and it's going to change dispatch policy as well as the whole of public safety. It'll be seen as a broader network even than just adding the social workers. So that's coming down the pike. It won't be done for, I'm sure, at least 3 years, but nonetheless, it's coming this way. And so I do want everybody to realize that, because it means you have availability of more ways to have your needs met. And it also means, of course, more work for public safety, like they aren't busy enough now. But I just want everybody to know that it's coming and they're working on it.
Thank you very much for that update. I wanted to bring to everyone's attention our Maplewood Public Safety Annual Report. Camera? It's going to be posted on the website tomorrow.
Wonderful.
We have been all given copies of it. It's kind of a unique thing, I think, that our public safety department does. Not every city does it, but they do an annual report that includes lots of information about hiring, about our technology, about our mental health outreach team, about the number of calls for service, about the different types of community engagement activities that we have. It is an excellent report. If you want to know what is happening in the city of Maplewood in terms of our public safety department, check out the Public Safety Annual Report. It really, Chief, they did a really nice job on this. I know that you get the glory for it, but I know that staff did it. So thank you very much. This really is a great document. It really shares with our community what our public safety department is doing and what a bridge they have with our community. So thank you very much for that. You can look at the website tomorrow and you can find it. You can read it for yourselves.
You can see how good they are.
It's a great report, it is, and it really reflects, I think, the dedication that our public safety officers have for our community and for our businesses, so thank you. Councilmember Lee, you wanted to talk about the Planning Commission and also the League of Minnesota Cities.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment, too. That's something that I love about Maplewood, piggyback off from our annual report. Public safety is very transparent about the work that we do here in the city of Maplewood. That's why I absolutely love our public safety team here, so thank you so much for the work. Really quick on the Planning Commission, last week I attended the Planning Commission meeting and also the Community Design Review Board. We have some great projects coming our way, Council, so be on the watch for that. Memory Care Assisted Living Facility, that's going to be coming on County Road C at White Bear. So it should be we're about 95% develop. I believe that's what I last saw. So it's going to be interesting to see what else is going to be coming into our wonderful city here. And then moving on to the Minnesota League of Cities, this last weekend I took some Friday and Saturday, spent some time with the foundational training for newly elected officials. I met 160, well, I didn't meet all of them, would have loved to, but there was 160 newly elected city council members and or mayor at the training in Plymouth. I had some great conversations with folks from all around the state of Minnesota. We're all in this together to really make our city a better place for everyone and all to live. So I met Maple Grove, Maple Plain. I realized that there were 6 other Maples in the state of Minnesota. So a lot of learning to do still, but it was a great time, Mayor.
Thank you very much for that update. Council members, we are going to move on to the resolution of appreciation for MAC member Steve Langdon. Chief Beardeman, this is your topic tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If I could have Steve join me up here right now.
Welcome, Steve.
How's it going, Steve? Madam Mayor, Council, in front of you have a motion to adopt the resolution of appreciation for Steve Langdon for his volunteerism and contributions to the city of Maplewood going back to 2016. In 2016, Steve volunteered to be part of the Use of Force work group in July. This is a city council appointed position, and he was appointed to it. They were tasked with providing written guidance to Maplewood police officers. They were a 12-member work group, accumulated 550 total hours of work. They attended 15 meetings and went over 400 pages of Maplewood Police Department policy, which is dry and pretty time-consuming. The work group ultimately made recommendations to the use of force policy. Following the work group, we wanted to continue the momentum we had in the relationships we built. So the Police Advisory Committee was created. Steve also volunteered for that. So we kept joining and continued that relationship together. In 2019, the MAC, or the Multicultural Advisory Committee, was created. During this time, Steve engaged with police staff, continued to form relationships. He attended community events. He provided input and guidance to the Maplewood Police Department strategic plan, to our recruitment, and was part of a lot of the hiring that we did and really had a lot of input on what kind of officers we hired. Basically, anything we asked Steve to do, he would do for us. He not only did this for the police department, he did it for the fire department. He also sat in on some panels for the overall city hiring as well. And I guess I could just kind of conclude by saying, what I really appreciate about Steve is at a time when many communities were turning their backs on officers, Steve joined the work group and he held us accountable. And he was part of that work group in that sense. But at the same time, he was really a champion for officer wellness and officer safety. And Steve really walked that fine line of accountability and supporting the officers. And I know that Steve had a lot of conversations one-on-one with officers, and at a time when they needed support, having a member of the community tell them that they supported them was really crucial for the department to move on. So on behalf of the Maplewood Police Department and the city of Maplewood, Steve, I want to thank you for your help. Thanks,
Brian. Steve, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, I would like to thank the city of Maplewood for having the vision to set up a way for the average person to be able to have conversations with the officers in public safety. It's been my privilege and honor to be with them. We have a wonderful group of people that serve us. They deserve our support, and I am concerned about mental health and well-being, because if the people that serve us aren't able to have a happy family life, happy personal life, be physically fit, mentally well, then it's hard to have people that you want to meet when it's time to meet some of the people in public safety. So I appreciate the recognition, but I am very thankful for what Maplewood has done to provide the opportunity for us to interact with those that serve us. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Steve, you want to stay there? Steve, you want to stay up here?
Okay.
We're not done with
Not
you
done?
yet.
Okay.
Council members, we have a motion before us. Would someone like to make that motion?
I move the resolution of appreciation for MAC member Steve Langdon.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Lee, the motion to adopt the resolution of appreciation for Steve Langdon. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Here's the resolution. Councilmember Lee, would you like to read it, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Steve, it's been an honor to serve on the MAC committee with you since 2020, so thank you for all the hard work. Resolution of appreciation, whereas Steve Langdon has been a member of the Maplewood Police Department's Use of Force work Group, Police Advisory Commission, and Multicultural Advisory Committee for 6 years, serving from July 2016 to February 2023. And whereas the Multicultural Advisory Committee, the Maplewood Police Department, and the City Council appreciate his experience, insights, and good judgment. And whereas Mr. Langdon has freely given of his time and energy without compensation for the betterment of the city of Maplewood. And whereas Mr. Langdon has shown dedication to his duties and has consistently contributed his leadership and efforts for the benefit of the city. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved for and on behalf of the city of Maplewood, Minnesota, and its citizen that Steve Langdon is hereby extended our gratitude and appreciation for his dedicated service. Congratulations. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Steve, for your time.
Thank you.
We're going to take pictures.
Huh?
Council members, let's go take pictures. Okay, next, Chief Beardeman, we have a swearing-in ceremony for 6 police officers.
The fun goes on.
Good evening again. Let me start by thanking the mayor, the city manager, and the city council for your support, as well as the officers, public safety staff, and family members who are with us tonight for the swearing of 6 officers. And council, this is a record. I think in the history of Maplewood, we've sworn in 5 at one point, but never 6, so we'll see how this goes. Across the United States, police departments are confronting a recruitment crisis that can only be contributed to a tight labor market, a smaller application pool, as well as a psychological toll, professional risks, and job-related stress that policing can bring. Due to retirements, the Maplewood Police Department at one point was down an unprecedented 11 officers. While most agencies aggressively hired any and all applicants they could find, my commitment to this community and the department was to continue to be highly selective and to only hire the best or none at all. Our agency has created a strong retention and succession plan which provides our staff with opportunities to work to their strengths, which provides our staff family-first philosophy, and cultivates strong community engagement, strong city council, and strong community support. The result is a destination department where our every move is the new tradition. The 6 officers that will be sworn in tonight are highly qualified and very impressive. Most importantly, they possess the number one qualification that I demanded in the hiring process. That is that they are good people. Each of these officers has successfully passed their field training and are now on solo patrol. I will now introduce each officer in the order they were hired, and I'll just have them step forward as I read their name. First, badge number 41, Officer Jamie Green. Jamie is one of our lateral officers. He has a Bachelor of Science degree from Minnesota State Mankato. He has a master's degree in criminal justice with a focus on cybercrime. He spent his last 4 years working in Cook County. When Jamie was asked why he chose Maplewood, he said it's because it's family first and the vast amount of professional growth that this department offers. Badge number 44, Officer Scott Rethwell. Scott is a lateral officer from Prairie Island and Minneapolis Parks. He spent 6 years in the National Guard and is currently working on a bachelor's degree in biblical studies. When asked why Maplewood, he wanted a community and a department that supports its officers. He wants to create a strong community bond and cannot think of a better place to dedicate his life. Badge number 46, Officer Johnny Yang. Johnny is another traditional hire. He's our traditional hire. So out of the 6, we have 5 laterals and 1 traditional. He is one of our traditional first-time police officers. In 2020, he left the Marine Corps and earned his bachelor degree in criminal justice and an associate's degree in law enforcement. I can tell you that Johnny was sought after by multiple agencies, but ultimately chose Maplewood because of the great people and high morale that he saw working here during his ride-alongs. Badge number 47, Officer John Gavand. John is a lateral with 13 years of experience in Oak Park Heights. He left Oak Park Heights as a sergeant. He has a bachelor's degree from Mankato State. The only place he applied was Maplewood because of the family first philosophy and what he observed is the department's dedication to officer wellness. He'd like to continue to build strong relationships with the community. Badge number 48, Officer Stephen Clayton. Stephen is a lateral with over 10 years of law enforcement experience to include both K-9 and SWAT. He has an educational background in music. He does have a unique connection to Maplewood. While working for the Polk County Sheriff's Office, he worked with Sergeant Joe Bergeron's brother. When asked why Maplewood, he said it's how the employees are valued by the council and by the administration and the career opportunities. And last but certainly not least, badge number 50, Officer Ole Mark. Ole is a lateral with 17 years of experience. He has a bachelor's degree from Concordia College. He has been an FTO, an investigator, as well as a K-9 handler. When asked why Maplewood, Ole said he's impressed by the professionalism, the enthusiasm, and the openness of the command staff and the officers. He stated Maplewood is one of the most unique environments he has seen and not seen it anywhere else. Soon, these 6 officers will give their oath of office and have their badge pinned on their uniform. The badge worn by Maplewood officers is unique to our city and our department. The badge, or shield, represents our commitment to the guardianship of the community and its citizens. Being a police officer, being exposed to hundreds, if not thousands, of traumatic experiences, having to make split-second and life-altering decisions, all while keeping your integrity and preserving the public trust, is a heavy burden. What kind of person takes that job? It's a luxury to pursue what makes us happy, but it's a moral obligation to pursue what you find meaningful. And that doesn't mean it's easy. It requires great sacrifice. There are those who say we're in a time where there are no heroes. They just don't know where to look. In closing, I want to make sure I communicate to you and your families that I'm proud to have each and every one of you as the Maplewood family. Remember to always serve our community and this profession with pride and honor. Congratulations to each of you, and stay safe out there. At this time, we'll have each officer, I think at once, give the oath of office, and then we'll do a badge pinning.
Right hand. And I'm going to start the oath. You'll each state your name, and then we'll continue the oath together. So we'll start here because we started there. I,
Jamie Green,
I, Scott Ruffalo.
I, Ben Johnny Yang.
I, John Gavan.
I, Stephen Clayton. I, Ole Mark.
Do solemnly swear that I will support
Do solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of police officer
of the office of police officer
in the city of Maplewood,
in the city of Maplewood,
in the county of Ramsey,
and the county of Ramsey,
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
I will never betray my badge or my integrity,
I'll never betray my badge or my integrity,
my character or the public trust.
my character, or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself
I will always have the courage to hold myself
and others accountable for our actions.
and others accountable for our actions.
Congratulations.
Family members, we know that you would love to stay for the rest of the meeting, but don't feel obligated. There's cake out there. We've got some other business to do. So thank you, everyone, for coming. That's the most ever. Moving on our agenda, Lois Knutson, our Administrative Services and Performance Measurement Coordinator. That is a tough act to follow, but we're moving on to our strategic plan update for the fourth quarter of 2022. Lois, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Here we go. So as the mayor said, my name is Lois Knutson. I am the Administrative Services and Performance Measurement Coordinator for the city. One of the main tasks of my job is overseeing the city's strategic plan, which is our guiding document for all that we do, and that includes reporting to you every quarter on our progress. So this is a report for the fourth quarter of 2022. So it's kind of an overview of our year, what happened in 2022. As you can see on this slide, we are currently at 73% progress, and in Invisio, the way it calculates that progress is driven by the progress on our action initiatives, which are the lowest level of our plan. And also keep in mind that some measures of our plan are annual measures that we measure every year, and other measures are project-based and ongoing. And they may take several years to achieve. So saying that we're at 73% at the end of the year, that's actually really good. There's approximately 12.9% disruption within the plan right now, and just 2 of our performance measures are showing major disruption. And when I've been here on previous quarters, it's the same 2 measures that we've been having issues with all year. One of those is the fire department had an initiative where they wanted to conduct home safety visits in 25% of all manufactured home communities. That program was disrupted by COVID, and then with building a new fire station and transitioning to that, it just hasn't happened yet. The other major disruption is with the Metro Transit Purple Line project design, and that impacts the future development planned within Maplewood in the Gladstone neighborhood. So that, again, is another major disruption. We have a few minor disruptions. Most of those are related to Acela, which is a new software program that the city is implementing, and several measures throughout the plan. They're just not getting to get them done because they're having issues implementing Acela. So working on that for 2023. The other thing, both the Cope and McMenemy reconstruction projects experienced some supply chain issues, so full construction was not yet complete, but those are set to be completed in the spring. Now, since we have a new council member, Mr. Lee, here tonight, I just brought up a slide that kind of reminds us what our strategic plan looks like. Our strategic plan has 4 levels. The top level, the strategic priorities, those are set by the City Council. The key outcomes, the next level, those are more categories or ways to divide the plan so that like items are together, so the plan as a whole makes a little more sense. Then we have the performance measures. That's when we're saying what we're going to do, like we're going to meet an 80% goal of doing employee wellness. So there's a performance measure. And then the bottom level, the action initiatives, that's the work plan. That's what do we need to do to achieve our performance measures. We have 6 strategic priorities, and I'm just going to go over briefly some of the highlights during the year. of what progress was made on those. And what I did for this presentation, as it's a wrap-up of the year, is I went to the department heads and I asked them, what do you feel were your major accomplishments during 2022? So for community inclusiveness, all staff completed base level cultural agility training in 2022. 25% of our new police officers hired in 2022 were non-traditional, and 38% of police department employees are women or people of color, which for a police department, those are considered non-traditional. The Fire and EMS Cadet Program is creating a pathway for non-traditional candidates to enter the profession, and they have 2 cadets right now, and they are doing great things and getting lots of training, which eventually will get them to becoming firefighters. Public safety staff, they conducted over 2,500 hours of community outreach in 2022. That is amazing. However, it brings to light an area that we're struggling with, and that is getting more of our non-public safety staff involved in community events. So that is something we're going to work really hard on this year. We've already talked a little about ways we can do it, thoughts people have, and we're going to really push that this year. Environmental stewardship. We have expanded our partnerships to offer nature-based educational programs. We now have partnerships with District 622 Community Education, and I just read proofread the upcoming Maplewood Living, and there's all kinds of classes and upcoming events coming for that. And then we also have established a partnership with Ramsey County 4-H, so that's another slew of opportunities to work with our community. We have continued to maintain our Green Step Cities Step 5 level, and that is for continuing to implement and measure sustainability best practices. There's a new stage of that that's coming up for 2023, and you'll hear more about that later, but there's something beyond Step 5 that we're now going to try to achieve. We conducted climate adaptation education and outreach at 3 manufactured home parks, and this was supported by the CERT's Clean Energy for All seed grant. So we got grant money to help us with that education. And then one thing that's not on here, because I just got the numbers today, we track our recycling and our trash rates. And there's good news and bad news. For 2022, there was a decrease in the residential trash rate. So that's good. The numbers were down by 380 overall tons of trash collected. So we're collecting less trash in Maplewood. But recycling was also down. It was down a bit, and we're not really sure why, if it has something to do with people starting to go back into the office and not being home as much, but something to look into for the next year. Okay, financial and asset management. We have a goal of having our debt per capita, so the debt per each resident in Maplewood, be at $1,450 or less. And at the end of 2022, we are at $1,275. So we're in a really good place there. So financial and asset management also deals with our assets. So things like the sewer, the streets. Our sewer crews cleaned 1/3 of all of the sanitary sewer mains this year. That is their goal. Each year they try to clean 1/3 of them so that everything is regularly cleaned every 3 years. And then, again, we mentioned this last quarter, but 70.84 of city streets have a PCI rating, that is Pavement Condition Index, of 70 or higher. That's a goal we've been shooting for as long as we've been measuring, having a strategic plan and measuring this, and we are finally there. So hopefully we can continue to improve on that and keep it above 70. And then progress is being made on developing a new snow and ice policy. This is in regard to plowing our streets as well as our trails, sidewalks, parking lots at the parks. And they've come up with a new plan. They've mapped it all out. And now I think the next step is to look at like future developments and which would include additional trails or sidewalks and how we add that and put that into our plan of who does what and when and what's a priority. Integrated communication. So then in 2022, the number of Instagram followers increased by 42%, so that's pretty significant for the city. Because Instagram, Facebook, those are ways we communicate with the public, other non-traditional ways we communicate with the public. And more people are starting to use those media outlets. Public safety continues to use social media to actively tell its story. Within the city, they and Parks and Natural Resources are the ones that do the best job. The rest of the departments, well, we don't have as many exciting things to share, but we need to figure out a way to share more things. And then we have also developed partnerships with City County Credit Union and Costco to assist with our community events. And then all major events were live streamed. That's something that our communications department has worked really hard on. And that brings up the State of the City, which is coming up on March 1st. And that is also a live stream event. Operational effectiveness. Our wellness program participation continues to be at 86%, which is great. One thing that we've really shown from our wellness program participation is that our insurance rates don't go up as high as they would because we do have a healthy and engaged workforce. The police and fire departments are nearly fully staffed. As you can see, as we just swore in 6 new officers, I believe they're at full capacity right now, but I'm not completely sure on that. And firefighters, I believe there's a few about to be onboarded. So again, very close to that. Cartograph, we are continuing to use Cartograph more and more for resident issues. Residents are able to report things that they're concerned about or have an issue with on the Cartograph system. And then our staff, it makes it easier for us to track the problems and resolve the problems. Motor vehicle and catalytic converter thefts are slightly down for the year. And then as far as our IT, there were no major outages or service disruptions in IT services throughout the year of 2022 for our staff. Targeted redevelopment. Land use requests were approved by council for multifamily projects in the Gladstone and North End neighborhoods. This will provide nearly 400 new housing units of various types that will be built within the next couple years. The city partners with Beacon Interfaith Housing and JB Vang to secure additional funding and financing for future redevelopment projects in the Gladstone area. And then the Purple Line project design is on hold while we are undergoing an engagement process for that. What's next? Usually at the end of every year, I get together with all the department heads and a few of their key people, and we talk about their performance measures. We evaluate and modify. The strategic plan is a fluid document. It is not static. We are always trying to look at it and see how we can use it to better reflect what we want to accomplish in the coming year. So we'll be doing that soon. The city will be participating in a Twin Cities High Performance Network. There will be between 6 and 10, I believe, communities taking part in that, and we will be meeting quarterly to discuss things like strategic plan and how other cities are dealing with certain things. Also work on benchmarking measures that are the same throughout all of those communities. At the upcoming council staff retreat, we will be working to establish a mission statement and values for our strategic plan. That's something that we keep talking about but haven't done, so that is going to happen in May. And then Invisio just did some updates to their report builder. They did it right when I was trying to put this report together, so I was a little freaked out, but I was able to access the old format and stick with that for this one. But next time, I will have a new format, I think, once I learn it. So that concludes my presentation. I thank you for your time and would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Lois, for your report. You know, what I marvel about Maplewood is that we take our strategic objectives very seriously. We don't just dream up some pie-in-the-sky things that we want to accomplish. We actually track how are we doing, how can we get to those, to accomplishing those goals that we have. And, you know, there are a lot of cities who don't do that. but I really admire all the work that staff puts into it, and I think it makes a difference in terms of our city and in terms of where we're going, because we've got a roadmap, and this really is the roadmap. So I always am very interested in reading that. So thank you for that report. Councilmember Lee, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to also let the residents of Maplewood know that you can also view this, all of the trackers online. Prior to being on the council, that's what I track to kind of see what the progress of Maplewood is. So it is available and open to the public, so please feel free to check it out online. But a quick comment on the, before coming on the council, I didn't know what a PCI was. I was excited to see that we're above 70%, so we can just kind of briefly, high level explain what that is so residents who are listening at home can quickly understand what that piece is. Something to be proud of.
Mr. Love? Mr. Love.
Yes, Mayor and Council. So PCI is a pavement condition index. So what our staff does is every 3 years we walk, or every year we walk a third of the city streets, and we essentially count and categorize different pavement failures. This goes into a formula that generates a PCI score, which is 0 to 100, with 100 being a brand new road. So our goal has been to be at a score of 70 or higher for 70% of our streets.
Thank you much.
And I think this is the very first year that we have actually gone above that 70 number. So very nice job. We've been working very hard on improving our streets. There's more work to be done, but we are working at this in a very incremental way, very intentional. So thanks for that. Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. Nice job, Lois. And it's nice to have it compacted so we and the public can see what progress we're making. But it's a long, tedious process to keep track of it. And just one piece on the environmental stewardship piece, the climate adaptation plan. We are still working on that. The plan is made, but we have lots to do, and so you'll be hearing more about it in the next update. One of the things that the Environmental Commission would like to see us move forward, and I think it's doable, is more electric vehicle charging stations. So that, and when we actually have two of our housing projects that are going in now that are putting those in. So stay tuned. We are always on top of it environmentally, and that's another place where it takes a lot of effort. So our thanks to staff for that too.
Thanks, Lois. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Council members, there is a motion. It is on page 23 of 198. Would someone like to make it?
Motion to accept the strategic plan report for the fourth quarter of 2022.
Second.
Moved by Lee, seconded by Juniman. The motion to accept the strategic plan report for the fourth quarter of 2022. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Moving on to our consent agenda. We have items G 1 through 9. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the consent agenda items G 1 through 9.
Second.
It's been moved by Juniman, seconded by Lee. Consent agenda items G 1 through 9. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Juniman.
I think we should highlight number 7 because it's another step forward in that process. And then I have a question on number 9.
Okay, let's take number G7 first. This is the land exchange. Do you have any specific question about that?
Oh, I'd just like to point it out to people that this is another step in the Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative building their development in Maplewood and Gladstone. So, and it helps both groups because what it is a swap of basically parking lots that are on the wrong side of the street for the place that had them. So they are swapping land. But it is another, if you will, legal issue that's taken care of so these projects can move forward. So I thought that was really
Thank you. Did
good.
you want Community Development Director?
I don't know. I don't think she needs to. Unless she has something.
I think we're good.
And then I have a question for Ms. Sint on number 9. It says that a background investigation was done. Did we find anything we didn't like? Do we know?
So Mayor and Council, thanks for the question. There was nothing nothing came up that would keep us from recommending issuance of this.
Have they met with the police department yet?
Yes. My information is that yesterday she met with Lieutenant Steiner.
That's all I needed.
Okay, we have had items G 1 through 9, 7 and 9. Councilmember Lee, did you have something concerning 7 or 9?
It's just a quick comment about 7.
Okay.
Just really quick that the Philippine Center is actually getting a bigger lot now, going from a smaller lot to a bigger lot that's directly across from them, so it's going to be a lot more convenient. So I think they got a really good deal out of it.
And it never did make sense. the way that it was-
Everybody's better off.
the way that it was set up anyway. So, okay, then we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor of consent agenda items G 1 through 9 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Moving on to public hearings, we have 2 tonight concerning our spring and summer road projects. The first one is the Myrtle Sterling Area Street Improvement Project, and I wanted to kind of outline what we're going to be doing with that. The first thing that will happen, I know we've got some people who want to speak about that. I know I've gotten some emails from several people. Is Justin here? Hi, Justin. And I'm sorry, there was one other email too that I got. So what we're going to do tonight is we will have the staff report that will be done by Mr. Jarosh and Mr. Love. Once we finish the staff report, the council will have an opportunity to ask any questions that we have for staff. Then I will use my gavel and I will open up the public hearing, and then we have the time clock over there. If you would like to speak at the public hearing, did you have the sign-up sheet is in the back? If any of you would like to speak, please put your names on the sign-up sheet, and then we will go through each one who has signed up, and you'll have an opportunity. When I call your name, you should come up to the microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation to the council. When we have exhausted everyone who wants to speak at the public hearing, I will close the public hearing, and then we will have an opportunity. If you have questions, that's the time when staff will ask staff to respond to those questions. But we want to make sure that during the public hearing, you have your opportunity to speak. We do not speak during the public hearing. And then tonight, it's a little bit different. After I close the public hearing, we would normally go to an opportunity for the council to further discuss the project and then take a vote. But because of the nature of these particular issues before us, it requires a supermajority of the council. And as you can see, we have 2 council members who unfortunately are missing tonight. So we will hold the public hearing tonight, and I do know that at least one of our council members is watching online, and I'm assuming the other council member will follow up and watch the video as well. And then at our next council meeting, we will actually be able to take the vote, because we do need, in order to move forward, we need a vote of 4 out of the 5 of us, and we can't accomplish that tonight just because of attendance, which is rather unusual to have 2 council members absent, but that's the way that it's going to work tonight. So the actual vote will take place on March 13th. So, Mr. Love, I'm going to turn to you, and let's start with the staff report.
Yes, Mayor and Council, good evening. As you mentioned, tonight joining us is John Jarosh. He is our Assistant City Engineer and leads our improvement projects, and he'll be giving the primary presentation. We also have Tyler Strong in our audience here today. He's our staff engineer right there. He's heavily involved with these projects as well. And following each item, he'll be available out in the atrium area there if residents have more questions that they want to follow up with him on. With that, I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mayor, Council. If I could get the presentation up, please. Perfect. Thank you very much. So the first public hearing we're here for tonight is the Myrtle Sterling Area Street Improvements. It's City Project 22-16. The streets included in this project area are shown on the right-hand side of the screen. They include Myrtle Street from Holloway Avenue down to the cul-de-sac, Lakewood Drive from Holloway Avenue down to the cul-de-sac, Kingston Avenue from the cul-de-sac over to Myrtle Street, a short segment of Ripley Avenue between Myrtle Street and Lakewood Drive. Over on the northeast part of the project, we have a Knoll Circle to the east of Sterling Street, And then moving to the southern portion of the project, we have Sterling Street south of Larpenter Avenue, down to where we left off with that Montana-Nebraska project a couple years back. We have Idaho Avenue from Mary Street over to the dead end by the Priory Preserve. And then we have Mary Street south of Idaho Avenue. Why we chose these streets, it's pretty apparent out there. It's the condition of the street pavement that's in pretty rough shape. This project area totals just over 1.5 miles in length, has an average pavement condition index rating of just 35 out of 100. So again, that's that scale from 0 to 100, 100 being a brand new street, 0 being nothing left, a gravel road. These streets average just a 35 out of 100. So pretty rough shape out there. The pavement is deteriorated to the point where we can no longer patch those roadways cost effectively. We do have some of those streets that do not have concrete curb and gutter that we're proposing to install it on. Those streets that do have concrete curb and gutter, the majority of that curbing is in fair condition right now. There is a lack of adequate storm sewer in certain portions of the project. Myrtle Street, shown on the right-hand side of the screen, is one of those streets. St. Paul Regional Water Service evaluated their water system as part of the feasibility study, and they did identify about 2,000 feet of water main that is in need of replacement. It is the old cast iron water main material that is susceptible to breaking in the winter. So some big improvements with the water main system. And then we also noted that there was a lack of pedestrian facilities near the new Justice Allen Page School along Lakewood Drive. So looking at the scope of the project, we are proposing to reclaim or grind up the existing pavement on these streets, mix it with aggregate base material below to create a new aggregate base for these streets. So reusing that material right on site. On the streets that are shown in red, those are full reconstruction streets on this project. We're looking at doing further work on the subgrade on those, digging down an additional 2 feet, putting in sand material to make sure we have a free draining base underneath these roadways. In addition to that, on the full reconstruction streets, we're looking at installing concrete curb and gutter. And then on those streets shown in green, those pavement rehabilitation streets, we're just looking at replacing that structurally damaged concrete curb and gutter. We're also looking at making repairs to the existing storm sewer system, as well as expanding that system and installing new systems on streets like Myrtle Street that don't have storm sewer at this time. We're looking at replacing the cast iron water main on Myrtle Street between Holloway and Ripley, as well as Lakewood Drive between Holloway and Ripley. On all the streets, we'd be looking at installing 2 new layers of asphalt pavement, and then we are also looking at installing a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the east side of Lakewood Drive from Holloway down to Ripley Avenue in that area of the Justin Allen Page Elementary School. So looking at the layout of the street on these full reconstruction streets, this slide is for Sterling Street, south of Larpenter, that segment of Idaho Avenue, as well as Myrtle Street. This is a slide from, or a template from our Living Streets policy, and this is the template that we're looking at applying to these 3 streets. So what it's showing is a 28-foot wide roadway, which is slightly narrower than the current roadway width on these streets of about 30 to 32 feet wide. Narrowing that up slightly to promote slower vehicle speeds. It also provides space for a vehicle driving in each direction, as well as parking on one side of the street. And then on the other side of the street, it provides space for pedestrians and bicyclists to move up and down these streets. Looking at Lakewood Drive, again, this is the street that fronts along the Justice Allen Page Elementary School. We are proposing a template that from the Living Streets policy that calls for a sidewalk on the one side of the roadway. So that would be the school side of the road, that east side. And we're also proposing a slightly wider street than those other streets I just talked about at 30 feet wide. And that's to account for there's a lot more vehicular and bus traffic along Lakewood Drive due to that school. So slightly wider than those other streets, but it is slightly narrower than it is today. It's currently about 31 to 32 feet wide, so still necking it down just a little bit to help promote slower vehicle speeds. Looking at the communication for the project that we've done to date, we sent out a project kickoff letter back in August of last year just to really introduce the project to area residents. We sent out an informational packet in November of last year that included a location map, frequently asked questions brochure, as well as an introduction to assessments to get residents thinking about that and understanding that there's an assessment that comes with these projects. We held the first neighborhood meeting back in December of last year. At that meeting, we presented to the residents and followed that up with a question and answer session. We talked about the scope of the project, the general timeline, cost and funding sources, went in depth into the assessments, as well as communication throughout the public improvement process. We also partnered with our consultants at Bolton and Mank to implement this Input ID web tool last December. This is an online mapping tool that's on our project web pages, where residents can go right on the map and comment right on the project streets or in the area on issues they'd like us to look into or ideas they might have for improvements in the project area. It's social media-like in nature in that it allows people to comment on other comments as well as like and dislike other people's comments, so you can kind of get a real good feel for the weight behind some of the comments that are out there. We also sent out a project survey in January of this year to get some additional feedback from the project residents on particularly the full reconstruction streets, on issues they might be having with drainage in the area, sanitary sewer issues, what private utilities they might have in their boulevards, things like that. We held a second neighborhood meeting in February of this year, leading up to tonight's public hearing. This was an update from that first neighborhood meeting, really bringing them back on board, getting them up to date on the latest with the project leading up to tonight's meeting so they're well informed. That was, again, a presentation followed by a question and answer session. Looking at the overall project costs, we're at just under $5.4 million for this project, with funding coming from general obligation improvement bonds covering about 40% of the project, the various utility funds covering roughly 26% of the project, a large contribution from St. Paul Regional Water Service covering those water system improvements at about 19% of the project cost, and then special assessments to the benefiting properties at around 15% of the project cost. So as we saw on that previous slide, the assessments are just one of the funding sources the city utilizes to finance these projects. Each year, the City Council sets a maximum rate for the different types of improvements. So for full reconstruction, there's one rate. For pavement rehabilitation, there's another. We set maximum rates for those every year. Then during the design phase of the project, the city hires an independent appraisal firm to determine what those properties in the area actually benefit from these projects. And then per state statute, we cannot assess those properties for more than they benefit from the improvements. So we test our maximum rates to make sure we're not over-assessing the residents. If we move forward, the assessment hearing would be held in September of the year. And leading up to that assessment hearing, the residents in the area would be mailed an official statement of their assessment. It will let them know what the amount of their assessment is, options for paying their assessment, the ability to defer their assessment, as well as the right to object to their assessment. Leading up to that assessment hearing, we'd hold an additional neighborhood meeting to better inform the residents on the assessments and answer any questions they might have on the assessments leading up to the assessment hearing. So looking at the project schedule, again, we held that second neighborhood meeting back on February 10th, leading up to tonight's meeting. The council received the feasibility study at that last meeting and ordered tonight's public hearing. Tonight we're here to receive input from residents in the project area on the proposed improvements. We're holding that council vote till the next council meeting. We're looking at awarding a contract in April of the year after we send the plans out to bids from contractors. If everything moves forward, we'd hold another neighborhood meeting leading up to construction in May of the year, and construction would occur sometime in early June through October or November of the year. And again, that assessment hearing would be held in September of the year. So with that, staff is recommending that the City Council hold the public hearing tonight. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Jarosh. Council members, do you have any questions before I open up the public hearing? No questions? Okay. With that, City Clerk Sint is getting the sign-up sheet. I will open up the public hearing for the Myrtle Sterling Area Street Improvements, City Project 22-16. Thank you. And it looks like we have several people who crossed their names off, but we have Jeff.
You can butcher it, it's okay. Kuzling.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thanks for your help.
Fine, I've heard it my whole life.
Jeff Kuzlik.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jeff Kuzling, 17.
You live on Myrtle.
1757 Myrtle. Been there 26 years. I was a lot younger and skinnier back then when we built and moved in. No complaints. I'm just thankful for your staff, Public Works, engineering that puts the time into this to do it. Glad to pay the assessment. You know, I could be laying on a beach somewhere with it, but that's okay. We're looking forward to it. It needs to be done, and I'm just grateful for your staff's time and for getting this addressed. So that's all. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Kuzlik.
you.
I appreciate that. Okay, there are no other individuals who want to speak, is that correct? Concerning the Myrtle Sterling Area Street Improvement City Project. Is there anyone else who wants to speak concerning this project? Would you like to join us up at the microphone, please? Please state your name and your
I didn't
address.
put my name on the list because, like I said, first time I've been to one of these meetings. I've seen you at the community center, but and so also, well, I've ran into Kathleen before, and I think John, you did an excellent job as far as communicating whatever the plans are. I'm also happy for it. I myself, I'm Dwayne Hess, 2331 Kingston, and I can't really complain. The only thing I was going to mention is coming from the north, the path that goes down to the park, there's always water puddle there. Now, does somebody address that? Every time I drive by it, I'm thinking, the guy that has that house right there, I'm sure he's got but if you ever drive by it right now with all the water, it's puddle there. We can always tell if it rained in the neighborhood, you know? And
After we're done with the public hearing, then I'll ask staff to respond to the questions.
Oh, sure.
That way we do them all at once.
But that was about, I mean, nothing that was
Okay.
that, and if I had anything else to say, I would question the idea of the background on backflow preventers. I don't know, from the past, I believe that the Maplewood wasn't following through on testing. I don't know if that was what the instructor had said, but my thought is if you know anything about the safety, whatever, if somebody had contaminants or spraying, it got pulled back into the house system, you could get poisoned. I mean, a lot of these rules come out of California, is just that ideally the backflows are supposed to be tested yearly, and the 50-year, the whole system is supposed to be replaced, any movable parts. It's for the sake of safety, and I think I'd address that if they aren't. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Do you want, City Clerk Sin, did you get his name and address? Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak concerning the Myrtle Sterling Area Street Improvement City Project 22-16? Seeing none, then I will close the public hearing. Mr. DeRoche and Mr. Love, we have a couple of questions. Do you want to respond to those questions and also some compliments? I think people are pretty excited about getting this road project done.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Yes, we greatly thank you very much to those that complimented us. I appreciate that. The water down the path at the park on Myrtle Street, that is exactly what we're trying to address as part of this project. So currently the drainage plan for Myrtle Street is all the runoff on Myrtle Street flows to the low point, which is the trail going into the park, and then the water flows down the trail into the area pond. So we're proposing to install an actual storm sewer system on Myrtle Street with piping to bring it back to that ponding system, as well as clean that water up before it gets back there.
Okay, so I think that addresses the questions that you had. Did you hear Mr. DeRoche? Oh, do you want to repeat that, please?
Certainly. So the current drainage plan, like you indicated, for Myrtle Street is that the runoff flows down Myrtle Street to the low point, which is a trail. The water then flows down the trail to the pond back there. So we are going to...
What I'm saying is not quite getting to the trail. That was my concern.
Correct. So we're going to install an actual storm sewer system in Myrtle Street with piping, underground piping and catch basins to take it underground off the street surface, off that trail.
If I was ever to call, I think John or no, Steve Love, you're the number or telephone numbers on that list, right?
Correct. Correct.
I'm impressed with
You
the
know,
project,
When we're done with this, then we'll have you step outside and you can do whatever other communication that you need to make sure you get all of those details, okay? No, that's quite all right. Were there any other questions? Mr. Love, did you have any response?
Mayor and Council, there was a question about backflow preventers, and I guess I wasn't quite sure if you were referring to the storm sewer system or sanitary.
Really, the sprinkler systems, I don't have one in the house. I worked at Honeywell, and I know that in order to test them, you don't have to be a plumber. You could be anybody on the board. But in order to install them, you have to be a plumber. Well, I did both. That's why I had my concern, is that I actually, at Honeywell, changed the filters, understanding the carbon, you know, and if they had the brass, whatever that was in the drinking fountains, you could leach the lead, and then they had the lead filters. But I'm just really concerned, like with the 3M products, the whole works, the contamination of water. I think our city, what they give us, does a great job on water service, whatever. But I just say it is a concern.
So, Mayor and Council, the water system in Maplewood, as you know, is actually owned and operated by St. Paul Regional Water, but we would coordinate with them throughout the project as they do that water main replacements and everything, so.
Thank you very much. Council members, do you have any other questions? Then tonight we will not, as I indicated, we are not going to be taking a vote. I know that we have one other street project we have to go through as well. If there are any other questions about the Myrtle Street project, maybe staff can, yes, our engineer can step outside and maybe get those notes down so that staff can then look into that, okay? Thank you very much. We are now moving on to the Woodland South Lawn Area Street Improvement City Project. Oh, Mr. Love? Yes, I did. Yeah, thank you. If I didn't, I think Mr. Beatty would have certainly let me know. Yeah. Thank you, though, for that. I, need all the help. So moving on to the Woodline South Lawn Area Street Improvement City Project 22-17. Mr. Love and Mr. Jarosh.
Yes, Mayor and Council, again, John will be presenting here tonight. And again, Tyler, after this particular item, will still be available out there for any additional questions or conversations to be had about the project. So, John.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Could I again get the presentation up, please? Thank you very much. So the second public hearing tonight is for the Woodland South Lawn Area Street Improvements, City Project 22-17. The streets in this project are shown on the right-hand side of the screen. They include, at the very bottom left corner there, Germain Court from County Road C up to the cul-de-sac, Kennard Street from Beam Avenue down to the entrance to Hazelwood Park, South Lawn Drive from Beam Avenue down to the cul-de-sac, Raditz Avenue from South Lawn Drive over to White Bear Avenue, Woodland Avenue from White Bear Avenue over to McKnight Road, Ariel Street from County Road D down to Lydia Avenue, and then a small segment of Furness Court north of Lydia Avenue. Again, why do we choose these streets? The pavement condition is the main factor there. These streets averaged just a 37 out of 100. So again, that's on that scale from 0 to 100, 100 being a brand new street. These streets average just a 37 out of 100. So again, the pavement has deteriorated to the point where patching it is no longer cost effective or even possible in some areas. The majority of the existing curbing on those streets that have it is in fair condition. And Raditz Avenue that's shown on the right-hand side of the screen is the only project street in this area that does not have concrete curb and gutter. Overall, the storm sewer system is in fairly good condition within this project area with only minor repairs needed. The sanitary sewer system is generally in good condition as well. And the existing water main in this area is the current standard material of ductile iron, so there's no water main replacement proposed with this project. Looking at resident communication, we sent out that project kickoff letter back in August of last year to really introduce the project to area residents. We sent out an informational packet in November of last year that included that frequently asked questions brochure and information regarding assessments. We held our first neighborhood meeting back in December of last year, introduced the project, the scope of the project, the time frame, cost and funding sources, the assessments, as well as communication throughout the process. Again, this was a presentation followed up with a good question and answer session. We also implemented that Input ID web tool for this project. So again, that's that online map on the project web page where people can go right on there and click right on the project street where they see an issue or a concern and comment on the project. And then other people can comment on their comments and like and dislike. We held the second neighborhood meeting just on February 7th, leading up to tonight's meeting. This provided an update from that first neighborhood meeting, and again, was a presentation followed up with a good quality question and answer session. Looking at the project scope for this project, we're again proposing reclaiming those project streets or pulverizing and grinding up that street pavement and mixing it in with the aggregate base below. We do subgrade corrections as needed in this project area. So if we encounter some soft soils somewhere along the project streets, we dig deeper and correct those as we go along. We look at replacing the structurally damaged concrete curb and gutter on those streets that have it. And then we are proposing new concrete curb and gutter along Raditz Avenue. We make any repairs needed to that storm sewer system and sanitary sewer system, install 2 new layers of asphalt pavement, and then restore any disturbed driveway or boulevard areas that happened during the project. We are also proposing to slightly narrow up Raditz Avenue, plus add some bump outs along there. Speeding was one of the concerns we heard at the neighborhood meeting, so we're looking at addressing that with some street layout changes. We're also looking at reconfiguring Woodland Avenue to address some of the resident concerns we heard at those neighborhood meetings, as well as fill in the missing gaps in the sidewalk system identified in the comprehensive plan. So looking at the Raditz Avenue, when we're considering the improvements that need to happen on a given street, we're looking at our big picture, our guiding document. So we're looking at the comprehensive plan for regional sidewalks and trails, missing segments in that system, and then narrowing down a little more focus directly on the street. We look at our Living Streets policy, which gives us some options for street layouts based on things like vehicle volumes and the area roadway network and pedestrian networks. So we take that stuff into consideration. We also take into consideration resident input. We take that into consideration, really analyze these areas. So when we're looking at Raditz, we looked at the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan did not identify any missing sidewalk segments along Raditz Avenue. It did call for one along Beam Avenue, identified a missing segment there between South Lawn Drive and over to White Bear Avenue, but it did not call for anything on Raditz. Then we're looking at the Living Streets policy, which has a few options for a street like this. And things we're looking at there are, again, the traffic volumes out there. The latest the latest traffic study done out on Raditz was done in late 2022. It showed 600 vehicles, just over 600 vehicles per day, which falls kind of in the middle range of a typical residential street, which goes all the way up to about 1,000 vehicles per day. So we're seeing a typical residential street here. So taking that stuff into consideration, we're looking at also the surrounding roadway network. Is this a neighborhood street that has a lot of side streets feeding into it? So this is acting as more of a neighborhood collector type street. This Raditz Avenue didn't really fit that bill. So when we're looking at this, we could take all that into consideration. This is the template we were directed towards from that data. It doesn't call for a sidewalk on one side of the street. I know there's a resident in this project area that's very much in favor, very passionate about a sidewalk in this area, but when we're looking at all of that data and our guiding documents, this is the path that it directs us towards. Just to run through what it's showing here, a 28-foot wide roadway width, which allows space for vehicles in each direction. It does provide space on one side of the road for parking, and then on the other side of the road for pedestrians and bicyclists. I would say with this If we are considering a sidewalk in this area, we would recommend that we go out for a survey of the neighborhood, to really make sure that there is, a majority support for a sidewalk. We did hear from the one resident who has very good information, very passionate about this, but throughout that whole process, we heard from one person. We didn't get any additional input one way or another on it. So if we were to move forward with the sidewalk, we would definitely recommend doing a survey to solicit additional feedback. Looking at Woodland Avenue, actually I should go back to that last slide quickly. In regards to the speed, so the current roadway width out there is about 30 to 31 feet wide. So we are proposing to narrow it down ever so slightly to that 28 feet wide, make it feel a little bit more constricted, which tends to slow vehicles down. In addition to that, we did hear from the residents that there is a concern with speeding out there. So in addition to the slight narrowing of the road, we are proposing to install curb bump outs at a couple of locations along that corridor, which will further constrict it and really grab drivers' attention that the road's narrowing in these bump out areas to hopefully further promote slower vehicle speeds.
I see Councilmember Juniman has a question right now, so we might as well. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Moving on to Woodland Avenue. So with Woodland Avenue, the picture on the right is a good representation of what's out there. And when we're talking about Woodland for this context, we're talking about east of Ariel Street. The portion west of Ariel Street is more of the commercial zone with your commercial, your businesses over there. So we're talking about east of Ariel Street here from Ariel over to McKnight Road. So currently it is a 4-lane undivided road. It's 52 feet wide, very wide. So what we heard at those neighborhood meetings was that it seems like there's excessive roadway out here. We see a lot of speeding happening out here because of the large, wide open corridor. There's also no place for us to park along the street if we need to park, because theirs are both driving through lanes. We also heard some concerns about the distance you have to cross the street, that 52 feet wide. If you're looking to cross the street as a pedestrian, you have a large space to cross there. So these are kind of the concerns we heard at that first neighborhood meeting. We came back as staff and we looked at what are the traffic volumes out there. Can we narrow this up at all? So we did a traffic study out there, and we did determine that this roadway can be supported, or the traffic volumes out here can be supported with just one lane in each direction. So what we're proposing to do out here is to narrow it down from that 4 lanes wide, that 52 feet wide, down to 1 driving lane in each direction. With an 8-foot parking lanes in select locations where they make sense along the residential areas, in front of the Bruin Troop Farm, things like that. So in those areas, it would be a 38-foot wide roadway, so really narrowing it down by 14 feet. We are proposing to only narrow it from the south side, and that is mainly due to the north side. Underneath that curb line is the trunk storm sewer system. And in order to move that curb line to the south, we would have to bring that whole trunk storm sewer system down to the south as well at a significant cost. So we're proposing to just do that narrowing from the south side. The nice thing about that is that additional sidewalk segments that we're filling in will fit entirely within what is currently a roadway, with green space behind it even. So we are proposing to only narrow from the south side. So looking at the overall goals for this narrowing, it was to modify that roadway layout to better match the current and future traffic demands for the area, really neck it down, make it feel a lot tighter to slow traffic down out there, as well as improve the pedestrian and bike access, really shorten those crossing points, create bump outs at those locations so they're really highlighted so drivers can see that this is a crossing point, and that the pedestrians are really standing further out into that, they're more visible. In addition, we are proposing to fill in all the missing segments in the sidewalk network along Ariel Street and Woodland Avenue. These are all identified in the comprehensive plan as priority missing segments. And then a bonus of the whole narrowing is the reduction in impervious surface out there. Narrowing it up this much, we're looking at about 1/3 to 1/2 an acre of reduction in impervious surface, meaning less runoff, less of the urban heat island effect, things like that. So there's some additional bonuses with that narrowing. So kind of taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture of the pedestrian network in the area, the lines shown in green on this map are the current and existing sidewalks and trails kind of within that north region of the city. Those segments shown in blue are the segments we are proposing to fill in as part of this project. So there's a few segments along Ariel Street, a few segments along Woodland Avenue as well. These are all identified in the comprehensive plan as missing segments in that bigger picture sidewalk and trail network. There's also lines shown in red on there, a little hard to see maybe, but along Lydia Avenue, there's a handful of little missing segments there. When Lydia Avenue is improved in the future, we would look at filling those pieces of the network in. And then down kind of in the bottom left portion of the map, the piece I talked about before, there is a missing segment identified in our comprehensive plan along Beam Avenue. And that segment is just north of Raditz Avenue. It's kind of meant to bring the pedestrian traffic from the west on Beam Avenue over to the McKnight corridor. Looking at the overall project cost, this project is estimated to cost just over $3.5 million, with about 10% of the project cost being covered by GO improvement bonds, about 10% of the project cost being covered by our utility funds, just over 50% being covered by the Street Revitalization Fund. That is the fund that is supported by the gas franchise fees we implemented back in the 2013 time frame for these types of projects. And then 28% of the overall project cost is proposed to be covered with the special assessments to those benefiting properties. Like you saw on the previous slide, the assessments are just one of those funding sources we utilize to finance these improvement projects. Each year, our City Council sets a maximum rate based on the different type of project for those assessment rates. And then during the project design, we hire an independent appraisal firm to determine what the actual benefit is that the properties in the area receive from the project. And then per state statutes, we cannot assess for more than the direct benefit to the property. So we're testing our assessment rates to make sure we're not over-assessing. For this project, we would again, if everything moves forward, we'd hold that assessment hearing in September of the year. And leading up to that assessment hearing, residents in the area would be mailed an official statement of their assessment, which would include the amount of the assessment, options for paying or deferring their assessment, as well as the right to object to the assessment. And again, we'd hold another neighborhood meeting in the fall of the year leading up to that assessment hearing to answer any questions there might be on assessments. Looking at the project schedule, we held that second neighborhood meeting a couple weeks back, leading up to tonight's meeting. We had the council did receive that feasibility study at the last council meeting and ordered tonight's public hearing. We're here tonight to receive resident input on the proposed improvements, and then the council would vote at the next meeting, hopefully if we have enough people, vote on the project at that meeting. If everything moves forward, we'd finish the design plans and send them out to bid, hold an award of contract meeting in April of the year. If everything moves forward, we'd hold another neighborhood meeting leading up to construction in May. Construction would occur in that June to October time frame, and then we'd hold that assessment hearing in September of the year. And with that, I recommend that we hold the public hearing. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilman Juniman has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Back to the sidewalk issue on Raditz. I can kind of see why someone might think that would be important, because if it's, let's face it, it's a cut-through street to the mall. I mean, we can say it's not, but it is. And I know that it's going to help with the speed to narrow it down slightly, but there are people who do walk. I mean, I've driven down there because I go to U.S. Bank over there, and so you see people walking, and at the moment they're in the street. I don't know if you should at least put it out to the neighborhood and see, like you said, you could survey the neighborhood and see what they think. I mean, if it's only the one or two people, then they're going to have to live with what they get, I guess. But I just think it might be worth a stab, because it does seem to be, it's a cut-through street for cars, but it's also a cut-through street for walkers. They go down to Raditz and then over to White Bear Avenue. So, and you know, it might be worth looking into. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of points. In terms, you indicated, you know, that you've heard from one, and I think I forwarded a second email. So there's actually two residents on Raditz who have communicated with the city about the issue. And from my perspective, and being on the council since 2014, this really is the time, if there are issues, for us to hear those issues and to try to get those resolved. And it sounds like they've had problems with speeding, and it is a cut-through street. It really is. Trying to avoid the stoplights on Beam Avenue. So, I mean, we all kind of, I think, understand that. And this is a great opportunity to see if we can work that through. When you say that we should survey the neighborhood, is that something that the city will do, or is that something that you are expecting that the residents will do? Just for point of clarification.
Mayor and council, so what we would do is, and have done on other projects, when questions like this come up, we the city, send out a survey to the neighborhood. We want to make sure that we're getting feedback, as much feedback as we can from everybody on both sides of whether they want something or don't want something. Another opportunity that we always tell the residents as we're going through the neighborhood meetings is, of course, the public hearing is another option to bring that forward. So I mean, this is how the process does work, and so we're looking to gather that feedback. We certainly can send out a survey about the sidewalk, though.
I appreciate that. And one other point, when you start adding things to a project or changing a project, that's obviously going to increase the cost. So I think as you indicate in the survey that it should reflect that there is an additional cost. So that everyone is aware of that, so that no one is surprised. I do know that one of the other emails talked about, asked the question, why not shut off the street at Raddatz? And you provided me a very good explanation for that. Can you just explain that a little bit about the two businesses there?
Sure.
That we can't shut it down.
Yeah, sure, Mayor and Council. So the two businesses there, the one on the south, its only access is off of Raddatz. It doesn't have actually direct access off of White Bear. The other one has two entrances. One is off of White Bear, but it's a right-in, right-out only, as well as the south axis goes on to Raddatz, again, to that full intersection there. This is also a state aid route. So a state aid route has to have two ends that connect to a larger size road like county roads. So the state aid route right now goes from South Lawn on Beam down to Raddatz and then over to Raddatz on White Bear. If that connection is severed, then this segment would have to be taken off of the state aid routing. Additionally, there isn't enough right-of-way in there to build our standard cul-de-sacs. Also, there's a private drive. There was some comments about why don't we route the traffic down to that other road. Well, that other road, Masabi, is actually a private roadway, and so is that north-south connection in between.
Thank you for that explanation. I think that's helpful. Councilmember Lee had some questions too.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also interested in these community survey. I think that'll be a really good way to hear the voices of the community in that area. My question comes around: could that be completed by the next time we have a vote on this particular item?
Mayor and Council, I think it can be. I think it's something that we could get out in the mail as early as tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council members have exhausted our questions, and now we are going to move to the public hearing. And so I am going to open the public hearing concerning the Woodland South Lawn Area Street Improvement City Project 22-17. And we have several people who want to speak. Justin, do you want to come up first? Your handwriting is a little hard to
the pen was terrible and my handwriting's not great anymore. So. I did not expect to get referenced in the presentation.
Welcome, Justin.
Thank you. My name is Justin Conan. I live on Raddatz Avenue with my wife and our 1-year-old and 3-year-old at 1861. I am a civil engineer and a roadway designer. I've been doing this for over a decade. A large part of what I do is related to pedestrian and public safety, as well as ADA design. So safe, accessible, equitable access to public infrastructure is a big passion of mine. It's actually the biggest reason that I love what I do. I am here today because I strongly believe that Raddatz is not a safe street, and I currently don't think that's being reconstructed to address that. I personally think the single thing that would actually make it safer is a sidewalk to be able to separate the pedestrians from traffic. And I do understand that the engineering department took a look at the high-level metrics like they just discussed, the level of traffic, the network density, houses, type of street, et cetera, and determined that these measures weren't necessary. I understand that. If I had had just those numbers, I would probably agree with them, but I think there's a lot of extra specific context that requires extra safety measures. The first is that people go through incredibly fast trying to beat the light at the corner of White Bear and Beam. There was a speed sign put up over the summer this year. The speed wasn't actually recorded for that, unfortunately, but just out walking, I saw it hit over 60 miles an hour one time, and I saw it hit over 50 twice, and I didn't see it that much. Like, I wasn't watching it the whole time. The second point of context is that we have an incredibly large vulnerable population. I include my two tiny children with that. For it, there's only 29 households on the street. It's a short shot with all that cut-through traffic, but to my count, there's actually 28 children on the street. 12 of those children are 5 years old or younger. There are 8 dependents living on the street with developmental disabilities. 5 of them are children. There's a neighbor down the street with dementia. There's a daycare in the middle of the block. I see people with wheelchairs on this road every day, this road on South Lawn, literally every day. This is all on what's going to be a 28-foot wide roadway with no sidewalks. And that's like from here to the wall with 2 lanes of traffic, parking, and people going 50 miles an hour consistently daily on this road. I did go around with a clipboard actually and spoke to all the neighbors I could. I got responses from 65% of them, which actually is like awesome for this. You guys probably know that's a good, good response rate. 72% of the people that I got responses from wanted a sidewalk. 17% were neither for or against, and only 11% wanted to continue without one. I know you probably need to do an official survey still. However, literally 100% of the people I talked to were concerned about the speed and the safety of the road. I got story after story from people, totally unsolicited, of having to step off the road, hiding behind a parked car, 2 different cars of the same neighbor across the street being struck while parked at the curb. My wife and I have both had the situation where there's a car coming down the road at us and we've had to like step over the curb to get out of the way of this vehicle coming incredibly fast with a stroller and like and our toddler in it. Separately, I've had that situation. This neighborhood's an island, and there's nowhere to walk to, so we all walk around the block as well. There's a lot of cut-through pedestrian traffic. We also walk around the block. It's us, and it's the low-income townhouse, Maple Knoll, that's over there. And they walk around the block as well. Oh, wow, that went fast. Again, I understand this costs money. Happy to talk about the specifics. I think this can be done for normal roadway pricing. Really love a single sidewalk on one side of the street to make us all safer for the next 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Next, we have Jean. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank
Can you
you.
please state your name and your address?
Yes, good evening. My name is Lee Zhang. I live at 2764 South Lawn Drive. I would like to ask council to consider including specific safety measures on part of the proposed project. What I'm talking about is the pavement rehab work on South Lawn Drive from Beam to the cul-de-sac. I want the council to consider putting speed bumps or some kind of other measure to physically slow drivers down. I live at the end of the cul-de-sac, and I see so many cars coming down super fast from Beam down all the way to the cul-de-sac into Masabi. It's scary. There's been accidents where it's car on car. There's been cars hitting my property. So especially now with winter, my fence has been hit twice. But what I'm most fearful is that children and elders actually are in that cul-de-sac. That cul-de-sac is where children are waiting for bus. They walk from that cul-de-sac up South Lawn or through Wasabi home. Young children, adults are also riding bikes in that cul-de-sac. And then the stretch of South Lawn Drive from Beam down to the cul-de-sac is being used by elders and others to walk. So they're walking on the street, and so cars are coming by super fast. I see this project as an opportunity for us to help drivers slow down and take caution as they drive in the area. In addition, I'm also a walker, so I do walk on South Lawn and Raditz, and I am in support of a sidewalk. I've experienced the same stuff that Justin just mentioned, like having to get off the street onto the lawn because cars were coming too fast. And a lot of times those cars are coming on Raditz and then they're making that right turn into South Lawn, or they're coming straight from Beam to South Lawn and they're just driving super fast. So thank you for giving me this time to share my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Nora Germain. Welcome. Please state your name and your address.
I'm Nora Germain, and I live at 1851 Raditz, and I've been there 50 years. And Raditz has always had kind of a speed problem, but if you want to keep on, you just get out of the way. So I'm not a big fan of sidewalks because I think our corner of Maplewood is pretty well paved over. Maplewood Mall, the whole, we need to keep some green space. A lot of people come out our way and they're like, Can't believe that you are like, feel like we're in the country, but we know you're in downtown Maplewood, basically. So my one thing is I'm not a fan of cutting down my big pine trees because they would have to go to put a sidewalk on my side of the street. And I don't want to be selfish with the guy on the other side of the street because they have short driveways, a lot of them. And by the time you realize, yes, I want a sidewalk, but wait a minute, I can't park my car in my driveway because now I'm blocking the sidewalk. So I think we need to consider that as well. Where are the cars parking? Because we have, if you take a drive down our street after dinner, there's a lot of cars parked in the driveways because Maplewood has no overnight parking on the street. So we have to consider that as well. Do we go the expense of giving them a little wider driveway then so they can get both of their cars or all four of their cars in and off of the sidewalk? Just, it's something to think about. So, and I walk there too, but, you know, I mean, it's not a place for children. We all have big yards. So, I mean, it's a plus and a minus, and I'm on the minus side. I really don't care for the sidewalks because I want more green space.
Thank you very much. Eric Zink. Hello.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Eric Zank. I and my wife have lived at 1905 Raditz since June of this year, or sorry, 2022. I'm pleased to hear the pavement will be redone. I think it really needs it. Should be better access to all the houses in the neighborhood. I am concerned about the speed of cars going through the neighborhood. I am also a parent of 3 of the vulnerable children Justin mentioned, and I think his analysis is basically correct. I would like to consider trying to get a sidewalk in. Basically, yeah, when I'm driving through, I do see people going fast. I also see a lot of pedestrians. Like last week, I woke up a bit early, got some groceries at 5 in the morning, and I saw people walking down. You know, they weren't brightly dressed. And basically, I'm concerned that it needs to be safe for pedestrians. There are a lot of pedestrians walking through to get to the mall or get to other areas, and there are a lot of people that live on the street. So I think it's, you know, there's a consideration of cost, there's a consideration of space, you know, where do you put the sidewalk? We, I think, get a little bit more width if we're shrinking the road by several feet, but I don't know exactly how much that buys us. At any rate, I would, came to the meeting so that I could express my opinion that I think we probably should consider a sidewalk here.
Thank you very much. Chuck? Sorry, I can't read. Chuck? Sorry, I can't read your last name. Is it Regal?
Regal.
Okay, sorry.
Well, first off, I'm sort of amazed about the discussion on sidewalks because I guess I have the opinion that the proposed sidewalk on Woodland is maybe unnecessary. There really isn't that much foot traffic, pedestrian traffic, if you will. The alternative that I would envision is to extend the north sidewalk on the north side of the street as far as Woodland Village, which has the sidewalk on the south side, and put a pedestrian crossing across that street. First off, the pedestrian crossing is about 1/3 of the way from White Bear Avenue. It might slow people down a little bit because speed is definitely a problem, and I appreciate now the effort about upgrading that road and considering what speed might be. And my vision would be to restripe after it's paved to double lane, doing something. I don't know what to do with the extra space, but moving the curbing seems to me like it's a pretty expensive move to move that curbing 8 or 9 feet, something like that, to narrow that down. And maybe restriping is a little cheaper way, and putting the pedestrian crossing is maybe a method of slowing people down. They go
exceedingly fast on that road. It's just unbelievable. So I guess I'm on record with not really approving the sidewalk. Right now, there's about 6 feet of snow over the top of the proposed sidewalk. So that means in the wintertime, it has to be cleaned off somehow. And I'm not sure all the people on my side of the street would be interested in shoveling snow on a sidewalk. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Pat Flaherty. Welcome.
Hi, Mayor, Council, others. My name's Pat Flaherty. I own Birch Glen Apartments, which is a 6-unit apartment building on Ariel Street. I want to start by thanking you for adding 6 police. We need it. So, I unrelated, but my concerns are, how is this going to inconvenience my tenants? The only entrances to my building are on Ariel Street. So how long is it going to be disturbed? How much communication am I going to get during the project? I have tenants that are going to want daily communication. I have a lot of senior tenants, and they want daily communication. My other question is, they in the presentation gentleman showed, there's going to be the project is happening in the middle of summer. I don't know when my specific spot will be done, but then finding out exactly what the assessments in the funding is, that's like in September. Is there someone I can talk to about before that? Because I'm not a resident necessarily. I'm a business. I need time to budget. And when I looked at the $69 a foot, this is like a $75,000 assessment for me, which is a huge nut to crack. So I need to know more about funding and all of that on the assessment. And I don't want to wait till September after the road's done to find that out. That's pretty much it for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing? Anyone else that wants to speak concerning the Woodland South Lawn area street improvements? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and this is really the opportunity then to go back and get some of those questions and concerns addressed with staff. I know that I appreciate a number of you brought up speed and about pedestrian safety, and I do know that Chief Beardeman was also included in some of the emails in terms of having our patrol officers work on one of their problem-solving models, going out and observing. The police department has done a really effective job. They've got a model on how they address these issues. And so I know that Chief Beardeman is already well aware of it. He was on the emails that I received. I think, Justin, you were too. So that I think the speed and the safety measures are being addressed with our public safety department. Mr. Jarosz, were there any questions that you noted that you wanted to circle back on?
Mayor, Council, I wrote down a lot of notes here. Starting with the last one, I guess, Mr. Flaherty. I can connect with him definitely after the meeting here out in the hallway and give him some information where we can give him an idea of what his assessment is going to be, at least from the preliminary assessment role we prepared as part of that feasibility report. So I can talk him through that. As far as notifying residents during the project of the project happenings, once we have a contractor on board, if we get to that point and get a contractor on board, we will get a preliminary project schedule from them. We'll get that information out to the area residents as quickly as possible. We hold weekly construction meetings with our contractors. As soon as we get that information, we go back and update our project website so people understand what's coming up in the upcoming week. We also send out a monthly newsletter to the project area, kind of giving them the more bigger picture idea of the schedule. If there's anything more urgent that's coming up, more on a daily time frame, we put flyers on doors. With an apartment complex like that, we want to make a connection with the property owner so that we have that contact so that we can notify the property owner, because we're not going to go to the front door of the apartment complex and hang up a flyer. So we'll directly talk with them about that to give them an idea of what's coming up. So once we get to that point in the project, we'll relay all that information to the residents. We'll send out a packet of information leading up to construction that says, here's how to get a hold of us during the project. Here's your key players on our team, the contractor, to get a hold of if you have any issues out there. And here's how we'll communicate with you throughout the project. Access during construction. For the vast majority of the project, especially on Ariel Street, it's going to be a pavement rehabilitation project. We're going to grind up the existing street pavement and turn it into a gravel road for a period of time while we're replacing things like concrete curb and gutter and making those minor repairs to the storm sewer system and sanitary sewer system. So the vast majority of the time, they're going to have access in and out of their property unimpeded. If the concrete curb and gutter right in front of the driveway entrance to the apartment happen to have to be replaced, there'll be a period of downtime where that concrete needs to cure before it be driven over. But in a case where you have limited access like that, we're going to work with the property owner and do that driveway in halves. So you have, while one half is curing and gaining strength, you can drive in and out in the other half. So we'll work directly with the property owner on maintaining access to the properties. I don't know that I have any other questions I wrote down. Is there anything else you wanted me to highlight or talk about?
I think those were all of the questions that I had. I know that there were some suggestions about maybe some other changes on Woodline. I think it would be beneficial. That was Chuck Regal who had made some of those comments, perhaps maybe talking through some of those, circling back with him when we're done with this particular meeting. That might be helpful. Otherwise, I think everything else has been touched upon. Mr. Flaherty, I can certainly appreciate your concern for your residents, and I can assure you that during my time on the council, we have done at least 2 and sometimes 3 pretty significant road projects in our city. And I have to say that the staff and the contractors that we work with take great effort to communicate with everyone about what's happening, what's coming next, so that you will know and your tenants will know and the residents will know. We had this last summer with businesses and some of the work that we were doing where businesses are concerned. Sometimes I know that the communication is on a daily basis. Sometimes it's on a weekly basis. But I can tell you that I have never once received a complaint from a resident that felt that they were not being communicated with or didn't know what was happening on a road project. So I can tell you that they really spend a great deal of time and effort communicating with people, because the project just works so much better that way if everyone knows what's going on and what to expect. So you can expect the very same thing should this project move forward. Okay? Councilmember Juniman, you had something.
Well, one of the notes I made for Ms. Zhang was the speed on South Lawn, and she's asked a question about speed bumps or some other calming. So you can either do it now or talk to her. I just don't want to forget it.
Mayor and Council, I can touch on the speed bumps. Typically, we do not install speed bumps on our roadways. Part of that is winter maintenance. You also have situations where there could be very rapid slowing down, crossing, and then that rapid speed up again. I think what we would look at is more like what we were talking about on Raditz, where you're looking at maybe some bump outs. That restriction. Again, you're going to only be able to engineer the speed of people that are not intentionally trying to go 60 miles an hour, right? That restrictions, those bump outs and stuff, that will gather the attention of your average driver.
Here.
I think, too, there hasn't been any communication with Chief Beardeman about speed on South Lawn concerns. So could you take that upon yourselves to communicate along with the issues about speed on Raditz to bring forward speed concerns, since we're going to have patrol officers out there working on those issues, working with concerns about speed on South Lawn too.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I can certainly touch base with them tomorrow
Okay,
about it.
thank you, and thank you for bringing that up.
Mayor?
Councilmember Junior?
Follow up, thank you. There were some speed bumps in our neighborhood, and we finally had to take them out because of the issue he was talking about. They slow down, then they speed up, and once they leave the speed bump, it's worse than if you hadn't slowed them down. So I think maybe that's probably not the solution. I understand that he has other solutions, and I can't resist. I have a thought in my head every time I see someone going way too fast. It's simply a reinforcement of the fact that the rules are only for those of us who are dumb enough to follow them. It's kind of how it seems. You know, we don't like the speed, and so we're thinking, why are you doing that? But I think he's right. Reasonable people will react to what we're doing to it, and other people will just still go 60 miles an hour on Raditz and cross their fingers and hope they don't get caught. Why? Only a greater power knows.
Councilmember Lee has a comment as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to just also add, if you can also add the South Lawn neighbors into the survey for the sidewalk also.
Thank you. There are no other lights that I can see up here, and so now I'll ask the question. Yeah, I did close the public hearing. Of course, we're having a discussion. It's a good point of order there. So, council members, we will be voting on this, and for residents, we will be voting on these two particular projects on March 13th. That is our next council meeting. And meanwhile, staff will be following up, and you can look for a survey coming out. Please go and talk to your residents about that, because we really want to hear what you have to say. So this is a perfect time. You're going to have hopefully some really new, wonderful roads in the fall, and it will make a complete difference in your neighborhoods. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Council members, we have no unfinished business, no new business. We do have an award of bids, resolution receiving bids and awarding construction contract for Goodrich Park improvements. And Ms. Robbins, that is yours tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Could I have the presentation screen, please? Thank you. I am here tonight to talk about the next potential phase of the Goodrich Park improvements project. And just a little refresher, the plans and specifications for the Goodrich Park improvements were approved by council at the January 23rd meeting and were subsequently advertised for bids, and a bid opening was held on February 14th, 2023. And these improvements include, just for a reminder, 20-stall parking lot, ADA portable restroom enclosure, which is closer up by the universal playground that it's at Goodrich Park, water fountain, a 30 by 30 picnic shelter, a patio with picnic tables and benches. And there were 9 valid bids were received for this project. We had a great turnout, which we were happy for. Summary of these bids is shown here on the screen. The engineer's estimate for the project was $364,479.67. And the lowest reliable bid that came in was from Sunram Construction, Inc. for a total of $406,875. Just to note, that was about 11.6% higher than the engineer's estimate, but we attribute that to current world events and material supply shortages and things still happening. The good news is the city has worked successfully with Sunram Construction as a prime contractor in the past, most recently on the Priory Improvements Project at Priory Preserve, and that was just completed in January of 2022, so very recently. And as far as the budget, the current approved funding plan established by the City Council has allocated $1 million for park maintenance and reinvestment, which will be funded through the Park Fund and Park Improvement Fund. The total estimated project cost, including indirect costs and a 10% contingency fee, is $516,872.50. And this has been reviewed by the Finance Director. And so with that, I will turn it over to you. And the recommendation we're looking for tonight would be a motion to approve the resolution receiving bids and awarding a construction contract to Sunram Construction, Inc. for the Goodrich Park improvements. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions? Pretty straightforward.
I move to approve the resolution receiving bids and awarding a construction contract to Sunram Construction for the Goodrich Park improvements.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Lee, the motion to approve the resolution receiving bids and awarding a construction contract to Sunram Construction for the Goodrich Park improvements. Is there any further discussion?
It looks really nice.
Seeing, it does look very nice.
We're
Seeing
excited.
none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. And council members, we have completed our agenda for tonight. I just want to remind everyone, tomorrow night here back in council chambers is a community engagement event that we're holding concerning the Purple Line. Tomorrow night, we will be having the No Rush Line Coalition who will be presenting, and also we'll have a representative from St. John's Hospital who will be presenting as well. And this really is a great opportunity for the council to listen into the community so that we can forge ahead on really meeting the needs that we have for transit over the next 20, 30, 40 years. So this is really important. We will begin at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And hopefully we'll be, we've allotted until 8 o'clock, but we certainly want to hear from everybody concerning this. So please consider either attending or tuning in tomorrow. Just a little reminder. Anyway, with that, we are adjourned. Good night, everyone. And